Hi, this is Charles Nenner, and it's January 20th, Martin Luther King Day. Today we didn't have research, but I want to take the opportunity to go into some very valid questions that we heard over the last couple of weeks. Exactly what is a short-term cycle and what is a long-term cycle, and how do we trade or take a position based on long-term and short-term cycle? In order to explain this, we are looking at weekly cycles, but in weekly cycles, there are short-term and longer-term cycles. Like in daily cycles, there are long-term and short-term cycles. The best way to trade a position is if the longest cycle is up and the daily cycle is up. The daily cycle we use to fine-tuning, and a weekly cycle gives us the major direction. As far as we have experience, as long as you go with the major cycle, you are saved by the direction, even if you make a mistake. So let's take a look at the first chart, which is a weekly chart, which I would call the weekly long-term cycle. Now we see something very interesting here. I mean, I just cut off a piece, but what you see over here is the weekly cycle. You see that we were looking here at three tops in gold, with the last one the highest, and you see the weekly cycle bottoming and the weekly cycle topping. And if you would just take a position long going into the weekly cycle, you're doing very well. And if you would take profit at the long-term cycle, you would also do very well. Now, usually we don't always stay this long. This cycle goes back to 2016, so we would have had only two bottoms, so we would have had only two trades since 2016. So we want to do a little bit better, and for this we use the short-term cycle. The next chart is going to show an example of the short-term cycle. As we see here, there are much more movements, and we see short-term tops and short-term bottoms, which you can be used to take a short-term position on the long side and the short side. But in order to get a real good picture, we have to combine it with the longer-term cycle. This is only fine-tuning the longer-term cycle. So our next chart is a combination of the first two charts that we saw. This was the weekly cycle. Before that, we showed this is a daily cycle. And now we see the cycles combined. And now if we look at the cycles combined, we see actually a perfect representation of what's going on in the GLD market, because this is all an example of GLD. So if we talk about short-term cycles and long-term cycles, it means is the long-term cycles gives us a long-term indication how long we're going up. But as we see on this big last up move on GLD, there were some intermediate corrections, which we can fine-tune by looking at the daily cycles. But usually what I show on Sunday's chart is a chart like this that is combined of the long-term and short-term cycles combined, which gives us the best projection of the highs and the lows, and the best results if we use this for investing according to cycles. I hope that this makes it a little bit more clear what we mean by short-term cycles and long-term cycles. But I'm happy to see more questions, and maybe we will continue with this presentation